Adding more town centers is an important move, but when exactly should you do it? The answer to the question of when to add more town centers is not categorical. Players must decide for themselves during a match based on the situation at hand. To understand when to add town centers, it is important to note both the benefit and the cost of building additional town centers. Additional town centers give significant benefits. For every new town center, the villager production potential multiplies. A player with 1 town center can create a villager every 25 seconds, while a player with 3 town centers can create 3 villagers every 25 seconds. Town centers can also to a certain extent assert map control by defending a resourceful position. Villagers can quickly garrison it and have it function as both a resource drop-off site and as a defensive structure. Town centers have considerable costs, however. Not only do they cost resources and villager time to build, but sustaining villager production from them takes up perpetual villager time. A player sustaining villager production from 1 town center only needs 6 villagers on food for that purpose. A player sustaining villager production from 3 town centers requires 18 villagers on food. So if you, for example, only have 12 villagers on food when you're in Castle Age and have built a stable and a second town center, you won't be able to sustain both knight production and 2 town centers villager production at the same time. The reason for adding town centers is growing your economy. But as growing your economy takes up part of your economy, you can also draw a benefit from delaying additional town centers. That benefit is in boosting military production. The 12 villagers which would be needed to sustain 2 new town centers could, for example, instead be used to sustain another stable of knight production. But going 1 TC all in, as it's called, will only pay off if you manage to deal enough damage to the enemy before they reap the benefits of a superior economy. Boosting military production by delaying new town centers can also have a defensive purpose. If you have lost your entire army, you are in dire need of a military force which can at least keep you alive. In conclusion, it is a good idea to build additional town centers sooner or later in order to faster increase all production capacity. But by delaying building additional town centers, you can gain more early military production. The risk in having too few town centers is the opponent gaining an economical advantage. The risk in having too many town centers is underinvesting in military and thus compromising safety. More economy growth does mean more military production in the future, but not if the enemy overpowers you before that future can happen. Here's a ranked match I recently played, which is a good example to demonstrate the risks of building town centers too early. This is an approximate graph to show the villager counts over time. My opponent in red had 3 town centers built before I started building my second. Based on the town center count alone, the theoretical village counts would look like this. With 3 town centers, my opponent would have had 3 times faster village production than me initially, and still 50% faster after I built my second town center. But these were the actual villager counts. How come my opponent's villager count stagnated instead of taking off exponentially after the 3rd town center? As we head off the graph and into the match replay at the moment of the 3rd town center being built, we begin to see why. Not only is the kill-death ratio 2-1 in their opponent's favor, but they are currently both outnumbered and outmatched. Their army is fighting against an enemy which is both twice the strength and 1 age ahead, and as if that wasn't bad enough, the fight is also uphill. At best, Red might escape with a few units, at worst they will lose their entire army. In either case, if Red would now choose to sustain villager production from all their 3 town centers, it would take up 18 villagers for the food cost. That would leave only enough economy to sustain maybe 2 military buildings. That small military production won't keep Red in the game when they have little to no army and the enemy is already at the gates. Subsequently, they are soon forced to idle all their town centers to boost their military production. At a kill-death ratio of 1-3 and outnumbered 10-1, Red couldn't stop the snowball. The fact that they pour over 1,000 resources into building what in the end were not much more than fancy drop-off sites didn't help either. Another factor piling onto the snowball was that I, for the most part, only had 1 town center, which meant I only needed 6 villagers for my economy, while all the other villagers could be devoted entirely to military production, which enabled me to keep up the pressure on Red. If Red kept more of the units alive and invested in a mangonel instead of a 4th town center, the story might have gone entirely different, and the 3 town center boom might just have easily won over the 1 TC all-in instead of the other way around. If my army was neutralized during Red's economical advantage, I would have instantly been put in a losing position, having neither military lead nor economical lead. Either way you play, there is a risk you must manage. I hope this video has helped you gain insight into what factors to take into account when deciding on what time to build new town centers. If you enjoyed this video, remember to hit the like button and be sure to leave a comment if you have any remarks or questions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.